This is CRM Audio, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM podcast, with George Dubinsky, Joel Lindstrom, and Sean, the CRM Hobbit Tabor.
CRM Audio, the Dynamics CRM podcast, is sponsored by KingswaySoft. They offer robust error handling and superior performance to streamline your development process and increase productivity. Their dynamic CRM tools simplify integration development work with easy-to-use development and scheduling processes. With their SSIS toolkit, your data integration can happen quickly and automatically so you don't have to worry about out-of-date records. The ultimate goal of the toolkit is to simplify data integration development work. By utilizing SSIS as your data integration platform, you can take advantage of the flexibility and power of SSIS ETL engine, which enables integration with virtually any application or data source that you may need to work with. We thank KingswaySoft for their support of CRM Audio.
It's morning where you are. You should be the wide awake one.
I'm tired. I'm dead tired. I just came back last night from Bangalore.
How was Bangalore?
Certainly, it leaves impression on you. You're facing a lot of kind of daily issues, like how to get from A to B. You know.
Do you have any? What was your most interesting experience you had there?
The most interesting experience? There are a couple of things worth noting. I mean, there are some things I did expect, like cows on the road, right? So just crossing the road in the middle of the peak hour. But the most interesting experiences is, I'd say, few things. The first is what was the best food I tried. Surprisingly, it didn't come from the hotel I was staying in, where they rave about international chefs and cuisine and so on. The best food came from the takeaway service, delivery service, because we were working on Saturday, and it was eatfresh.com service. They ordered lunch because lunch place was closed where we usually had lunch, and it delivered lunch with the delivery like about $4, and the food was just absolutely outstanding that they brought in. So that was the most unusual one. In kind of stressful experiences, trying to get an Uber on the Tuesday night during the peak hour. Nailing Uber in Bangalore, it's like playing whack-a-mole. They come and go like, on your screen, literally, like popping up and disappearing like 5 seconds later.
So you got to be ready to jump in.
Yeah, it's an experience, and if Uber says 20 minutes away, take it. In fact, it's going to be probably an hour before they get there, but take it. My advice, take it.
Yep.
I refused one which was like 15 minutes away, and I regretted it for the next hour and a half. And the second stressful experience is crossing the road, which I would never do again. I don't know what possessed me to do that.
So
But
what would you do instead of crossing the road? Just decide to stay where you
no,
were?
I mean, that was silly. That's the matter of habits, because I thought I'm going north, so it's easier for the Uber driver to pick me up. I'll cross the road so they don't have to turn around. Well, that was silly, because it doesn't matter where you are, it takes forever to get there. So for Uber driver to turn around, it's not a big deal. It adds like 3 minutes, but it saves your life. And it's just nobody does that. You stay put where you are, just make sure you communicate with your driver, and that's it, because they can't call you back on international number. So you have to call them back and say, yeah, I'm legit, I'm staying here, just get here. Yeah, that was silly. That was just a matter of habit. I thought I'll save driver turning around and cross the road. That was the silliest thing to do. So I was shielding myself with locals, like in my defense, going with them and kind of staying on the other side of the upcoming traffic. So.
And you were training people on ADX?
Correct. The IBM office, IBM India or IBM Middle East, they doing a lot of new projects that involve portals. So that was ADX Studio. I kind of got into discussing at length the differences between ADX Studio and Microsoft Portals, that is online version. But it's online only experience, so there is no server-side development. And we did discuss at length during the training. Whilst they wanted to do their deployments that they're planning is ADX Studio, so version 7 with all the latest goodies, talking to CRM either 2015 or 2016. We did discuss when deployments to online make sense and how easy it is to deploy online if your scenario doesn't actually call for the server-side code. And if I learned anything is that the way currently portals are structured and with the latest features of the version 7 of ADX Studio, um, there is actually limited need for you to do server-side development unless your portals do something very, very specific.
So a lot of the reasons to do that have now been moved to more configuration options.
Well, there's a lot of in configuration options and addition of quite substantial functionality, uh, and I would say most importantly, control over how you surface your CRM forms, CRM lists, and with adding entity permissions, which allow you to control with the fine level of details who can see what and how, that solves a lot of issues, right? But to me, as a developer, the most exciting addition in version 7 is perhaps Liquid um, templating language. The biggest probably drawback of Liquid is that the parsing is done the server side, so whatever it produces is HTML. So as such, what you cannot do, you cannot post back. So if you're looking for creating say edit forms, right? Or any similar functionality using Liquid, then you're out of luck. That's when you need actual server-side development. But if your development caters only for displaying information in your portal with a variety of formatting options and perhaps with a lot of JavaScript and so forth, then Liquid, I would say, it's like a godsend. Um, it's really flexible. It's like a tiny scripting language. It's been developed by Ruby guys long, I wouldn't say a long time. Well, in IT speak, yeah, a long time ago. Um, but it's tremendously powerful. So it's been like rewritten. The Liquid parts have been rewritten by ADX team, and they've done a good job. So Liquid now understands CRM entities. It understands some language constructs like looping, so you have some control over execution, and it adds just expands the capabilities. So I would say like 80 or even more percent of your portal needs would be covered by, even for the complex portal, covered out of the box.
So do
Um,
you see it following a similar trajectory that like CRM version 4 to 2011 and 2013 took, where in CRM version 4 there were a lot more limitations where people would have to do custom HTML pages or custom interfaces, plugins, callouts before that, and a lot of that stuff has shifted more to configuration where there's still need for the development code. It's less so than it was before. It's moved more to configuration.
yeah, look, very similar. I would even step back and for people who remember how, let's say, plugins were done in CRM, whatever it was, 1.2, I think it was. A totally different model for the plugins, and then it changed and then became more streamlined. But I see it the way like slowly removing the needs to even create plugins. Like for example, where you previously done some work with the plugins, now you can do at least half of those scenarios you can do with synchronous workflows. Simplest one popping up to my mind is creating one-to-one relationships where you have to keep two records in sync, right? Simple scenario, yet prior to synchronous workflows, you had to do some plugin development. and now this is totally transparent. So I see them covering some server-side needs in the upcoming versions of the portal. As far as given the development of the development environment, my guess, and it's pure speculation, that they would give some sandboxed environment for you to deploy your code in. So you're not, whatever your code is doing, accepting posts from the portal and so forth, it doesn't affect the shared environment it's in. So they would give some capabilities to do that.
And to
That's
me,
my, yeah.
one of the values of going with the new out of the box portal options is doesn't count against your entity count. Where ADX, I believe they've changed this up to where it's more modular, but still it has a number of entities it adds to your environment. And you have, and I've seen some things in the last week where that, what is it, 300 entity, or is it 200 still, entity limit is an actual hard limit where you hit it, you can't add any more entities.
Yeah, look, yeah, I agree. That's a good sign. The one thing that, another thing that kind of the message I was trying to get across to people, and I think there is a common misunderstanding um, what portals do and what they're not designed to do. There is a common misunderstanding in the sense that people say, hey, portals have, say, event management feature. Oh, great. So all our event management needs are covered in full by the portal, so we don't have to do anything. Well, the the catch is that portals are only surfacing functionality that you already have implemented in CRM. So your event management in the portal is going to be only as good as the event management that exists in CRM. If your CRM side, if your CRM, forget about the portals, if you remove portals, if your CRM doesn't do, for example, individual track assignments and speaker tracking and resource allocation and room allocation and post-conference party facility to ability to track post-conference party and attendees who attend those post-conference parties and so forth. Portal is not going to magically add these capabilities to your CRM. It can be a public facing site that gives access to all those features, but only if they present in your CRM. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you're right. A lot of people think that I just need a portal, but you're right. You need to first have a data model. You need to have a data structure. You need to have that functionality in there before you can expose it externally. It's the external UI for that, and
Correct.
it can
Yes.
be a streamlined UI that's easier to enter via the portal than logging through CRM. But it has to be supported by the data model. So that's a great point. Let's get to our news.
Oh yeah,
And
exciting
the
news.
big the big story is the 26 billion with a B dollar acquisition of LinkedIn by Microsoft. Proposed acquisition. It's not final yet, but proposed acquisition. And I think this one took everybody by surprise. I didn't, when we had our episode where we were predicting the acquisitions, nobody was predicting. No one was predicting LinkedIn or a social network of any kind to be on the list.
No one was predicting, perhaps because of the price tag. So if you ask me like 3 months ago what the price tag would be, I wouldn't give that figure, but it would be at least public valuation, right? So, which at the time of the bid was share price was half, no, not half,
Right.
but kind of fraction, much lower than it is now. Microsoft with the bid, they basically propped up the price, but I would say that definitely um, the price tag would be something that stops me from suggesting LinkedIn or anything else. It's like it's a huge price tag. Oh, someone
It's
mentioned
roughly
on
it's roughly a quarter of the cash that Microsoft has, which is like $106 billion
Yes, and
in cash.
it's not a script bid; it's a cash bid. So that's another
Right.
part which is surprising. But someone mentioned on social media sort of that they could buy 19 air floats for this price.
Right. Right. And one thing that came out on Friday, Wall Street Journal had an article revealing that Salesforce was also bidding for it, and Microsoft won the bidding war. So that shows some of maybe why Microsoft was after it and was willing to pay as much as they did. Was they see this as a key competitive advantage that they want to keep out of the hands of Salesforce or Google or somebody like that.
Mm.
And we've talked about this before. I believe we had an episode where we talked about Neil Benson's rant about Facebook, or about LinkedIn. And his rant wasn't so much about LinkedIn as a service, it was about LinkedIn closing off the open APIs and charging what is a fairly pricey cost for the integration. This changes things, and every deal seems like every deal that we're in now, people are asking about social and specifically about LinkedIn, wanting to have a LinkedIn integration. In the U.S., I know if you're a salesperson, LinkedIn is your go-to source, and everybody's on LinkedIn in the business world anyway. And it's also, before LinkedIn, when I was in sales 10 years ago, you would pay these very expensive Dun and Bradstreet or some such service to get information about who worked at what companies to prospect to them. Now it's all LinkedIn, and that information is generally more up to date than these very expensive services you would pay for.
The only thing that concerns me is that I'm not sure about D&B services, but on LinkedIn, this information is only what people put in about
Right.
themselves. Though the information as in who's working for what company and so on could be valuable, and what their connections are could be valuable, because generally speaking, people don't put false information about the companies they work at or the companies they work with and the people
Right.
they connected to. And it's the only concern I have about LinkedIn has been like a breeding ground for the recruiters,
Oh
which
yeah,
kind of makes sense. But
yeah. If you get hammered with a bunch of recruiters, but also, I mean, when you're looking at a company, I've used it that way. You have somebody. We have a client, for example, that went through a merger, and we don't know the new people very well, but we have somebody who's connected to the vice president or the CEO over there, and you can reach out to them and say, hey, I see you're connected to that person on LinkedIn. And so it's from a when you look at at social media from a business perspective compared to Facebook and Twitter, where Facebook is still relatively closed if you want to find people you're not connected to, and Twitter is just people posting short messages that may be interesting, but it doesn't give you the information. Where basically LinkedIn gives you pretty complete resumes of people. So, for example, when I was doing a kickoff meeting 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I had the names of the people, but I didn't have their jobs. The place I went was LinkedIn because I could find their title, I could find a picture of them as well, and so it's obvious the value of. To me, LinkedIn has the most valuable data from a pure sales and marketing standpoint. There's junk out there as well, but there's also some interesting things around machine learning and other technologies that LinkedIn has that will be of interest. Leon Tribe had an interesting post on his blog, that crmblog.wordpress.com, where he looked at it and looked at the numbers and did some interesting slicing of the numbers to take the 433 million people on LinkedIn and compared it to the 3.4 billion internet users worldwide. But then using some other statistics found that it breaks down to roughly a quarter of everybody working in the world that's on the internet. And so from there, from a business perspective, there's obvious ties in, and what Nadella was talking about was kind of what Microsoft does already with Active Directory and Office 365 and connecting people, broadening that audience of who it could connect you to and exposing that through a bunch of different stuff. Dynamics, I think it's obvious because it seems like everybody we're talking to nowadays wants to have LinkedIn, and the value of a CRM system that comes with fairly up-to-date contact data already baked in versus one where you have to build it from scratch or get the out-of-date contacts everybody has in Outlook. To me, that's obviously a plus. Now, I don't know what that means for the integrations they already have with Salesforce. I can, given that Microsoft is being fairly open with other technologies with competitors and things like that, I can't imagine they're going to totally shut it off. But if it's more fully baked into Microsoft's products, I think there's a clear value there in the dynamic sense.
Well, and wouldn't you think that not only that connector to LinkedIn, but things like Inside View, taking both of those things and really enriching the data quality of what goes into Inside View from LinkedIn really strengthens that offering as well. So it's kind of like a double whammy.
Yeah, I think so because it instantly could make social engagement much more interesting to a lot more people, for one thing. Because, I mean, arguably, the functionality in social engagement is on par, or in some categories even better than things like Radian and Hootsuite and things like that. But it doesn't get as much press as some of these other services do. Where if you have it be native LinkedIn in it, then there's instant value there. It may actually have impact on things like dynamics marketing, which has been a not as successful as well.
Well, and it also gives you, I think you were referring to this, but it gives you that insight to secondary and tertiary relationships that you don't have out of the box right now, right?
Right.
So if you have a prospect at a company and you really want to get to the main purchasing agent or the person that's responsible for those kind of decisions, you're getting a step up by getting partway in the door, as opposed to just getting the name and number from a business card and then having to fish for it. So it's pretty
It
powerful.
really has changed the game with resumes. I mean, I don't know how long it's been since I've updated my Word document resume, but update my LinkedIn fairly regularly. And I know for a fact most companies now are looking at your LinkedIn when they're interviewing you.
And a lot of sites give you the option to import your LinkedIn profile as your resume a lot of times,
Right.
which is interesting. Did you see anything about the possibility that Salesforce could be going after Slack as a result of not getting LinkedIn?
Maybe, I don't know.
Now,
It's in the Wall Street Journal article. It was talking about how LinkedIn and the price Microsoft paid was roughly half of what Salesforce's paper value is. So if they had won that bid, it would have been really interesting to see how they would have pulled that off.
Look, I reckon that if Salesforce had the bid, in fact, that would have been some script bid. It wouldn't be a cash bid, and that's one of the reasons, I
Right.
suppose, why Microsoft won it. It's just pure cash bid.
right.
I actually found the original email that Satya Nadella sent to LinkedIn CEO Jeff Weiner. It said, "Hello, Jeff. Satya Nadella would like to add you to his professional network."
And did it show he was a LinkedIn Pro member?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. When I get an invitation on LinkedIn from somebody that I've never heard of, I don't know, from Adam, and they don't take a second to change that default text,
Yeah.
I know that they really, really care about adding me to their professional network.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it would have been funny if Satya would have sent, you have a very interesting LinkedIn profile, and as such, I have an exciting opportunity for you. I have a buttload of cash waiting here. I'm ready to offer. Yeah.
Look, I don't care. If I receive a personal one from Satya, even if it's a templated one, I
Oh,
will
I'm
accept
jumping
it.
on it. Oh, yeah. Of course you would. You silly not to.
So, Mr. Hobbit, how much did you have to pay Ben Vollmer for this glowing recommendation of you on LinkedIn?
Ben is an outstanding gentleman with high quality assets within his brain and his acumen.
You must be talking about different Ben Vollmer than I know.
Assets inside his brain? Is
That's right.
that the
That's
is
right.
that the
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a little insight. I just got done eating a lot of ice cream, so my brain's synapses aren't firing 100% right now. I'm a little bit dessert drunk right now, but no, Ben and I have been friends for a long time, and he's a good man.
He still hasn't endorsed me.
um,
Okay, so the next topic we had was the blog post that just came out talking about the features that are being deprecated in CRM 2016 Update 1. That doesn't mean these features are stopping working, but Microsoft has clearly indicated these things are going away, so patch up the lifeboat and get ready. So what I thought would be good, instead of just the uh, reading the list verbatim, we could go through the list and rate these on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being ho hum, 10 versus oh no, pull your hair out, the building is on fire, we need to act now.
Okay.
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 Let me pull that list up, and some of them, let's just go through them. Okay. So this is in order to continue to provide great capabilities for people using Microsoft CRM, we occasionally need to replace older capabilities with better ones. So you're not losing anything, you're getting better stuff. Because these changes can be disruptive, we provide as much advance notice as we can so that you can be ready and make any necessary transition. Okay, so first one, deprecation of the Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2011 endpoint. The CRM 2011 endpoint is being deprecated in favor of the Web API. Deprecating an endpoint is a pretty big deal, especially when the programming model is as different as it is with these two endpoints. So, in coming releases, we will modify the assemblies so that they will use the Web API instead of the 2011 endpoint. Is this on the level of the deprecation of the 4.0 endpoint when we had to rewrite every single plugin? Is this going to be more gradual? George, being the
On
only
a
real developer in
scale
the
1 to
conversation,
10,
yeah,
that's like 11.
That's what I was thinking as well. I was just thinking all the existing code sitting out there. From
I'm thinking of all these people that have these Codeplex
yeah,
add-ins,
Yeah, it's
like the
like
dependent workflow
yeah,
thing and all
it's
that.
like all of it.
yeah.
It's that's
But okay, but reading it, it says Microsoft will modify the assemblies so that they will use the Web API. Does that indicate they're going to have some backwards compatibility and change them under the covers to use the new Web API versus the 2011 endpoint?
we did ask. Oh, some people ask exactly this question. We yet to receive any clarification on that. From the developer's point of view, the best thing that could possibly happen is that they give us um, a new assembly and I just recompile, and suddenly all my stuff just magically works against the Web API endpoint. I understand that's not gonna happen to the lower level where I explicitly say that he's the SOAP request I'm sending, which actually will break a lot of JavaScript as well,
Hmm.
right? If
Right.
your JavaScript, we're not talking about server side or compiled programs. We're talking about the massive number of JavaScript resources embedded as web resources inside CRM and calling the SOAP and OData version 2 endpoints left and right.
Right.
Okay, that's all going to break. So my take is that though they're raising the point now, it's going to be a while.
It doesn't say when. It doesn't say
It
the
doesn't
next
say
release.
when.
It
It's
says in
definite.
future.
Well, wouldn't
Yeah,
wouldn't you
And
foresee?
that's the question: is the web API ready? Because developers I talk to still say there are some major things missing from it compared to
it
the other.
doesn't have 100% coverage. That's perhaps one of the most concerning things. Um, there are some other bits and bobs. We can take the whole episode to talk about it just for developers. But look, long story short, certainly there are a number of things the team can do to make this transition easier, and most likely they know what those things are, and most likely they will try to do their best to help with the transition. But in terms of kind of scale of the change, yes, that's like 11 because everything, if they introduce it now,
Uh-huh,
the world will stop,
uh-huh.
the
Right.
CRM world, right? It's gonna break everything, like every single bit and bob. So,
So, George, if you're developing a plugin or whatever, or developing for CRM, if what you are doing can be done with Web API, would you go with that now?
um, I'm trying to do some of the components in Web API, but as you said, it's not kind of ready, and most the biggest challenge I have is most of this stuff is not about using API directly. It's more about the libraries you have, the helper libraries you have, the bits and bobs that you developed through years and you're using them now.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be redeveloped. And Web API, as such, SDK doesn't give any wrapper libraries or helpers or what's not. So people started to develop their own. So far, we have um, Dave Yak releasing a couple wrappers for C Sharp and JavaScript on the Git, I believe is github.com/davidyak/xrm.tools. And someone else just posted, I don't have reference off the top of my head, on the Facebook group that they have their own wrapper. So there will be kind of a number of wrapper API around API surfacing, and I was kind of hoping that there will be an official one. Uh,
Hmm.
but have a look at this part of the statement that plugins currently, you don't have an option to use Web API from plugins. So for plugins and workflow assemblies, um, you can continue to use SDK assemblies. In coming releases, we will modify these assemblies so that they will use the Web API. That's an interesting bit. Does it mean
Yeah,
that?
that's something that's different from when the 4.0 to 2011 transition.
Correct, yes. So does it mean that they will have some special their own server-side wrappers that they will kind of expose as API? Or does it mean that the entire SDK will change so I can just instantiate and continue to do stuff as I've been doing, except
Right.
now magically it's a web API going to the server side?
Yeah, because I think by making it when you went from CRM 4 to 2011, making it so traumatic, you trained a lot of customers to not want to upgrade frequently. And if you don't build that kind of wrapper or transition, make that transition easier, you're not going to get people upgrading as frequently as you want. You'll have people holding out on the old version because they don't want to pay a developer thousands of dollars to go rewrite all their plugins.
Yeah. And look, the last thing I want to say on this topic, so it's early days, but the last thing I want to say that 90% of developers, honestly, they don't care if at the low level it's a SOAP or if it's web API or it's some kind of magic wand. All they care about is to say, you know, A equal new contact, A dot first name equal Joe, A dot last name equal Lindstrom, A dot create, done.
Right.
Or rather, endpoint, sorry, dot create A. That's all they care about. And how it's done at the back end or at the low level, do you really care?
no, and I think too, as as when I was a more in a configuration role too, going to a client and saying, "Pay me this money so I can make your system do exactly what it does now." Just pay me
Right.
this money so I can upgrade it, and you're not
Right.
getting any real new value for that. That's a hard conversation to have. Versus, I've enjoyed recent years where we haven't had to do that, where we've, each release has, we can pretty dependably say the old stuff still works. We got these new toys you can have if you want to, and it's just a much more positive experience. So yeah, I think I truly do believe that the CRM team really is trying to make upgrades, not as non-traumatic as possible. They've now have several releases showing that, and they have a history of that. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. But I think it makes sense why Microsoft is trying to get to one endpoint as well. That's, I think, a reasonable goal. Okay, let's move on. Updates to the CRM SDK assemblies. So this relates to those assemblies you're talking about. So they're saying they're going to go back even at version 2011 and make some updates, some things for security and other things. And the impact is going to be applications using older assembly versions to connect to CRM Online will need to be relinked to the updated assemblies to function normally. On a scale of 1 to 10, where is that? Is that like a 4?
No, it's a bit higher than that. I wouldn't rank it at 10, but I would put it at around 7 or 8, depending what the word relinked means. Because if they're talking about just replacing assemblies and adding some, there is a setting in config file saying dependent assemblies, basically, which says to your executable or to your assembly saying, hey, look, if you're looking for Microsoft.xrm.sdk, any version from 0 to 6.7, then go and fetch this one, which is 6.8. Right?
Yeah, the details says if you're using the CRM 2011 endpoint to authenticate against the CRM Online identity provider, must be rebuilt with the most recent releases of the SDK assemblies to prevent future service outages for applications.
Now, rebuilding would take it to again to 10 on the scale, because I bet a lot of people have something that is currently working and running, but they don't have the source code for.
Yeah.
Right? Those things will break hard because simply you just won't be able to rebuild it. So I truly hope that just ability to repoint assemblies will suffice. And we've been discussing just privately what exactly is happening. Again, the suggestion was that what they're trying to do is to remove old live ID stuff.
That
could be something else. I have no idea, but asking to people recompile would be a big ask.
But yeah, say you got an old add-on from C360 or something like that, and you don't have the source code for it, or the partner is defunct, or is in maintenance mode. Yeah, you could have some stuff that breaks that you can't get fixed easily.
Now, having said that about relinking, there are two parts to it. The one is if you're deploying in the environment that you control, that's probably going to be the case. You should be able to change config files and you're done. If you are deploying your old assemblies into online environment, let's say you're using plugin from CRM 2013, right? Or something like that, and you deploy into environment that you don't control, then you will have to rebuild.
Well, but isn't it, since this is authentication to online, wouldn't it 90% of the time be to an environment you don't control?
No. It's authentication against CRM Online. It doesn't mean you deploy into CRM Online.
Oh, I guess
it's the part that
so
authenticates against CRM Online.
It could be an authenticate or an integration from on-prem to
XRM
cloud
Toolbox, for example, connecting to anything.
All right.
including CRM Online. So that part needs to be these applications would need to be relinked, whatever that means. I guess more details will come out.
Okay,
Let's
so
move on.
we had an 11 houses on fire. We had an 8. I'm strongly concerned.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is removal of the use legacy form rendering option. For those who don't know, CM 2015 Update 1 online and CM 2016 on premises introduced a new form rendering, sometimes called turbo forms, although frankly I haven't seen it in a lot of cases make it necessarily faster, but it's a new rendering engine. In some cases is faster. And there is an option currently in the settings where you can tell it to still use the old form rendering engine. And there's several reasons why that's done. Biggest reason is I have yet to see an environment upgraded that has JavaScript in it where it works with no errors with the new form rendering engine. New deployments seem to work a little bit better, but even some of them, um, there are still some really, you typically will see, from my experience, see some JavaScript errors that you won't see when you have it turned on. Or when you're using the new form rendering engine. That may be because the JavaScript has some things that aren't supported, but in a lot of cases where you're upgrading, unless you go through line by line through the code or rewrite it, it's hard to weed all that out. So the answer, what many times is people are turning on the legacy form rendering engine. So that will be removed. My hope is that some of the current quirks in it get worked out before they totally take it away.
So this is in your domain. So how, on a scale 1 to 10, how would you rank it?
I would put it probably a 6. I mean, for somebody or higher for somebody who has a lot of existing code, because this is where you have to go through and review and have a developer. I mean, you could easily burn up a week or two going through some of these environments JavaScript and updating everything and just figuring out it's not always clear what's causing the error. The other thing I found is, and I'm not an expert JavaScript debugger, but what I found is when you get a JavaScript error with the legacy form rendering engine, a lot of times it makes sense. You can clearly see the field being referenced if there's a problem with a function on a field, versus the new one doesn't seem to give you as clear error messages. And so at times we've turned on the legacy form rendering engine just to get the clearer message to figure out where the issue is. So again, I think this is going to add this one to the first one. There's going to be a lot of existing environments that are going to need in-depth code reviews and somebody going through with a fine-tooth comb and identifying what that is. My hope is for this one that some additional tooling similar to the upgrade advisors that we've had with CRM 2011 and 2013 that can go in and the ones that identified the 4.0 endpoint. Maybe there's some things that can identify the common incompatibilities. It also says in the blog post that there still are. We're aware that there have been some behaviors in the support XRM page client object model that are not fully backward compatible. And their suggestion is get with the CRM technical support to help resolving the issues if you have backward compatibility problems. That can be challenging sometimes. If you have a lot, Microsoft support isn't always going to be open to going through things that you've developed yourself.
Oh, can we just roll back a bit?
Yeah.
I clicked through to the update to CRM SDK assemblies.
Which means he wasn't listening to the entire thing you just said, Joel.
Yeah. And it says in the detailed article, well, as much details as it can provide, it says this applies only to Microsoft Dynamics CRM Online.
But why does it say they're going back as far as CRM 2011? There's no online CRM 2011.
No. If your code was linked using CRM 2011 SDK, And my understanding, if it's been published to CRM Online, for example, you have a plugin that's been compiled with CRM SDK from 2011, it would still work.
Right.
But now they're removing some referenced assemblies, and your code will look for assemblies that are no longer in CRM Online environment.
Okay.
So you will have to relink it. Recompile, rebuild your code.
Right.
Okay, it's still unclear, but like 5% clearer than before.
Right. Right. Okay. So yeah, the
So,
remaining on the list are so I think those ones are probably the highest. Um, and the next ones we can go through pretty quickly. Deprecation of legacy knowledge management entities. If you're one of the 5 people that use knowledge management in CRM prior to the new knowledge management, you're probably very concerned about that. Most people
That'll probably have a
use it.
big impact. They'll have to do a migration of data, which will suck.
Right.
okay, about migration data, that sucks. Tip number 569, migrate knowledge base articles to interactive service hub like a boss. It has script which is precisely 36 line long
All right.
that recreates your knowledge base articles in the interactive service hub
Well, there you
from
go.
your old ones.
Well, there you go.
Here you go.
All right. Good man. Good
Um,
man.
PowerShell, yes. Okay, so
George,
we can cross
providing
this one
value.
out. So
Yes.
migration is very straightforward. What will break, though, are dependent components. For example, if someone was crazy enough to use knowledge base articles and publish them on their portal, the portal code would have to be rewired or rewritten
Right.
to point to the new ones. And that applies also to search capabilities because it's slightly different. Anyway, so if you have dependency, yes, moving KB articles themselves, it's piece of cake. That's the least of the problem.
But now,
So I would say,
does this force them to use the new UI, or can they still use this? They can't use the old UI with the new entities, or they
no, they have to use Interactive Service Hub.
right. So that's a whole nother. It's not as that's not as severe, but it's another
But there
deployment
you
and
get a clear value in that your KB articles can be much richer
Sure.
text, include videos.
Sure.
You get something better.
Yeah,
These
but it's
other
moved cheese.
right.
Yeah,
The
that's
thing is, yes, I'm getting better, but I'm happy with what I got now. And it was such a pain in the
Correct.
butt to implement what I have now. Why do I want to change when it's working fine?
okay.
It's one of those
Next one is deprecation of Android 4.3 and 4.2 and 4.3. I say if you're still using Android Jelly Bean, you need to get a new phone anyway.
Yep. And the security issues alone probably would take most of those out anyway.
Right. And then the last one is just a reminder, the list component is deprecated. And that's for SharePoint. And there's 2 things on that. One is this is going to force some people to upgrade their version of SharePoint.
Right.
And there are a lot of people who are still on SharePoint 2010, or maybe SharePoint isn't a major focus of theirs and they haven't been paying a lot of attention to it. They don't feel they have a need to. This is going to create a need to upgrade to, I think, SharePoint 2013 or later is where the server side. Also, there's a lot of people using the legacy SharePoint grid control that like it because it shows the folders. Also, certain partners have enhanced the grid control to include things like a dialog to specify the metadata on the document. Some people aren't happy that the server-side SharePoint doesn't allow them to enhance it. You're basically stuck with what's there. But I think the story makes a lot more sense now that we have other sources like OneDrive, like OneNote. We have Office groups, we have OneDrive for Business, and all these now show up in the same grid. And so in that sense, once you have that experience, not having the metadata enhancement and not having the visible folders, you still see all the subfolders documents, you just see it all in one list.
Right.
And I was a little bit more tentative with 2015 update 1 when that came out, but now that I've seen kind of the full story, I like that experience a lot. and I especially like it works on mobile. So there's trade-offs, but those trade-offs, I think, again, to me, a trade-off or having to change something or a moving of my cheese, if I'm getting something that's better that gives me more value, I'm all for it.
And it also
So let
improves.
me
It
say
also
that,
improves
Joel,
the.
you've seen the future, right?
Yeah, I've seen the future and I've drank the Kool-Aid, and I'm on board.
But I mean that also improves the business value of something like Delve, if you hadn't thought about
Yeah,
using that. So it plays right into
yeah,
that as well.
yeah. That's true. That's true. And when LinkedIn's integrated with Delve, and you see documents of interest in your external community,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that gets more interesting. You
Yep.
know. Although I still haven't, I love the idea of Delve and Office Graph, but the environments that I'm in, the story isn't quite connecting yet. I still see documents that I don't have any interest in for groups that I don't have any idea why they're showing up on my Delve. So, but again, I think it's early, and I think the machine learning gets smarter and smarter, and I'm sure it'll get there. I just haven't seen it yet.
Now it,
I just wish Amazon could recommend products that I really want to buy. Amazon recommends products that I've already bought. I bought a vacuum cleaner, 6 months ago, and it's still recommending I buy vacuum cleaners. And it should know I already bought one, so I don't need more than one vacuum.
Amazon knows that
Maybe it
I like.
recognized it wasn't a really good one.
Well, there you go. That could be it. Amazon does know I
Yeah.
like Star Wars, so they're pretty on.
Look, everyone knows you like Star Wars.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying they're pretty spot on with that.
It's not- So they keep offering you tickets to a Star
Oh,
Wars?
sure. You know,
Is there any product they won't put Star Wars on these days? I mean, when I saw the Darth Vader toaster, I I I cannot think of any product that does not have Star Wars on it now.
they're in the
Well,
height.
and Darth Vader is a toast.
Exactly, it makes complete sense. In the height of in the Force Awakens height of the marketing, there were BB-8 oranges. So no, there
The
is.
only problem with my Darth Vader toaster is it burns the toast and makes it a little bit on the dark side.
But but
Anyway,
if you flip it over, it's light, right? It's only dark on one side.
Okay, are we done with the Star Wars jokes?
I think we were done before we started.
Yeah, we were. Yeah. I'd use air quotes for the word jokes.
Amazon's top recommendation I buy right now: hand sanitizer.
Ew. I don't know.
The problem is that my account and my wife and I share the same account.
Yeah, mine
did
is.
you-
Mine are Star Wars pop vinyl statues.
I think I did mention that before, that one of the surprising things about Amazon is that you can have the same account with multiple passwords.
Mm-hmm.
They did it a long time ago to encourage people to, like, for husband and wife, shop off the one account. But now I think it's like coming back and hard and saying, what have you done? It's like you can have same email with 3 different passwords.
Have you guys?
Now, in the other news,
Yes, sir. Go
have
ahead.
you guys tried tasks.microsoft.com?
Is that the light project management?
Yeah, that's the one.
I've heard about it. I haven't tried it yet. Our Office 365, I haven't checked. It wasn't upgraded to 2016 yet. It may be now. What do you think?
I feel cheated. I don't know what the right word. Deflated, because it's the feature set is kind of disappointing when compared to the existing applications doing the same thing, Kanban boards and things like that. And compared to something like Trello, the feature set is really poor. On the other hand, when you start thinking about it, probably the target market is not people who use Trello these days, right? The target market are Office 365 users who don't use anything and that gives them introduction to kind of simple planner, simple Kanban board they could use to plan some teamwork. You certainly wouldn't do any large size software development project using that. You would use a bit more serious tools. But definitely as organizers, kind of personal small team level, it makes sense. I do hope that they will expand the feature set because currently it's like a poor cousin. So
Right.
it's really hard to do things, but it works against your it works well with Office 365 groups. So I see, if not the bright future for this product, at least not a dim future for this product. But you never know.
How does it
3 years
compare with
from now, they can
something?
take it away.
How does it compare with something like Basecamp or something like that? One of the more simple
Not well.
ongoing
First of
project
all, they
management
kind of
tools.
take different approach. Second, it it's the wrong product to compare to. Um, because Basecamp is not about timelines or anything like that. It's more about collaboration, whilst this one is more about sausage factory kind of approach to the tasks. So here's your tasks, each task in predefined state or lane and so forth. So the right product to compare it to is Trello. Um, and
Here's
so,
something interesting I just found, and I didn't, I have never logged in here, but when I go to task.office.com, I see each of my Office 365 groups I'm a member of in there. And so that makes sense that this is the engine behind the tasks and assignments in the Office 365 group. And if you look at it that way, where you've already got it automatically set up, and it's got, you've got not only the calendar for that group, but you've also got the ability to assign tasks. And those tasks also then go to my Exchange tasks and show up on my task list. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah, absolutely. As I said, for the existing, for Office 365 users who don't use any kind of lightweight planning tools, that could be a good answer. Um,
Right. And that's the thing that again, I think I'm finally getting the Office 365 groups in that, for example, the group is kind of like, people I've been in conversation. Should we do Office 365 groups, or should we do, uh, you know, team sites and SharePoint? And the way I'm leaning now is do the group because it's got all these pieces. It's already got the documents for the group. They're already tied into SharePoint. It's got the tasks. They're tied into this task thing. It's tied into the mainstream of where Microsoft is going versus the team site, which is kind of where Microsoft has been.
I was on a project 6 months ago, and we used Office Groups when it first came out, and it was, I mean, it didn't have all the functionality it has now, but it was extremely more useful than I thought than a team site, because a team site has
Right.
a lot of things you're not going to use, and it ends up just being a document library anyway. Whereas the Office group, there was a lot more ability to really actually collaborate. And the only thing that was a little cumbersome was you weren't able to allow external people access to the Office group. So I haven't used it on a project since then, but I really liked it. I'd use it again in a heartbeat.
Right, and this isn't going to get your tasks down to a Microsoft project Gantt chart level or anything, but if you want a simple planner for especially group, I could see the advantage of this. You probably, if it was a serious project or a major project of any kind, you'd want more detail than what this has. But if it's a collaboration with a group
Mm-hmm.
and prioritization of the tasks and assigning the tasks, I mean, my favorite thing with the groups is that the messages posted in them come in my Outlook just like my email do, so I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to go anywhere to join in conversations.
Mm-hmm. And we shared our OneNote notebook on the group. We had the documents in the document library that you could still sync to your Outlook folders, so you could still get to that information from Outlook. It was extremely helpful.
So, George, are you making task.office.com your tool of the week?
Early days. I would say for people who don't use any lightweight planner and are on Office 365, certainly, yes. It's much better than nothing. So it would make total sense if they give it a go and see if it works for them. It's one of those things, planning tools, whatever works for you. And I just checked, logged in and checked what Amazon suggests I buy. Stickers for Lenovo Pad, a 60 pack of crayons, travel adapter, and design for Hacker's book. Here you go.
I can see you coloring now.
Yeah, I have no idea why crayons are on the list, or stickers for that matter. I can relate to other two. I remember looking up those, but no idea. With the stickers for the computer, I haven't been using like for 2 years.
Someone get you a coloring book for Father's Day?
I've got awesome coloring book. I've got coloring book for adults called 99 Ways to Die. Look it up. It's awesome.
The one I want is a Doctor Who coloring book.
Oh, Oatmeal actually just about to release, or
one.
they're raising money on Kickstarter to release coloring book for adults.
Yeah.
Some of those coloring books, like the Doctor Who coloring book and the Lord of the Rings one and the Sherlock one, look like they took a real picture and used some kind of Photoshop to turn it into a coloring. It really don't look very good.
Yeah, it's like they use an Instagram filter to
the tracing filter.
Yeah.
It's like you don't need a
They're
Photoshop
just
for
taking
that.
the cheap way out.
Yeah.
Oh well.
They're fun to pass the time.
We seem to have exhausted all CRM topics for today.
This has been CRM Audio, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM podcast. You can hear previous episodes on our website, crm.audio. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, follow us on Twitter at CRM Audio, or leave us a comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/CRM podcast. If you have any topic suggestions or questions that you would like for us to answer on a future episode, please drop us an email at voice@crm.audio. Special thanks to Dale Simmons for our theme music. Go check out his website, dalesimmons.com. Please join us next time on CRM Audio.